good to be talked about by the national media, even if Colin Cowherd's talking out of his ass like he was about C.J. Stroud not having gone through adversity over the last, I don't know, couple of years at Ohio State, but specifically saying he didn't go through any in childhood when his dad was in jail. But anyway, there have been more takes on those hot internet streets. Here's what Colin Cowherd had to say about C.J. Stroud and his performance in Thursday's preseason game.
Facing Belichick as a rookie is like teaching your kid how to drive in New York City. It's really fast, and mistakes are inevitable. But what New England does, and they do it well every year, is get to the quarterback. And the Jets' weakness, that's what I thought about with Aaron Rodgers sitting at home in New Jersey. He's got that big new home. Sure, he had to go out and buy pillows and comforters. Maybe he had somebody do it for him, but he was sitting there watching. And that's what New England does. Their backups beat Houston's backups, but that's what New England does under Belichick.
Wow, he had a real hot preseason take.
Also, why did we have to bring up Aaron Rodgers' pillows in his house?
Why did we have to bring up driving in New York City?
Well, that was just relatable. You know, he's an everyday guy like you and I.
Who has a car in New York City? Unless you're loaded. It's so expensive. You think that the houses cost money? They sell parking lot spots for like $1 million there. God, he is just so unrelatable at all times. By the way, he's talking about the Patriots' backup defensive lineman. He's like, yeah, you know what? They're really good. It almost offers an excuse for C.J. Stroud, but it's sort of like what C.J. Stroud was saying in his post-game press conference about playing the Patriots. We had fun with this on Friday, Sean, where Stroud essentially said, well, yeah, playing in New England's tough. Well, it's the preseason, dude. It's the preseason. It's not like Belichick's whipping up exotic defensive schemes for you.
You got it's cold and windy in mid-August.
Yeah.
You got Ty Law, you got Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi. It's tough. Richard Seymour breathing down your neck.
Right, but they don't even have Matthew Judon out there. Just a bunch of guys.
Yeah, but see, the weakness of the Texans' offensive line, as we've discussed, up the middle, and now you have to play quarterback with Vince Wilfork breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
It's tough to play in Gillette Stadium.
Oh, man.
All I'm saying.
40-year-old Vince Wilfork coming after you in his overalls like he was on Hard Knocks.
Ribs coming out of his pockets.
Hey, I got some brisket in one of these pockets. You want some? It does seem like there's a lot of pocket possibilities when you've got overalls. Anyway, more hot Texans takes by the national media. Someone decided to ask Eric Mangini about the Texans quarterback competition. They shouldn't have because it's over. But here's what Eric Mangini had to say entirely based off of what he saw Thursday.
But coming out of this game, it's hard to say that was successful. That's a difficult sell now going into this next week because now you've also got Davis Mills, who had a really impressive game relative to what Stroud did. So if this is a competition, after the first round, Davis Mills is clearly in the lead. Moving into the season, if you go with C.J. Stroud and things don't go well and you get to the fifth or sixth game of the season and the record's really poor and he's not making a lot of progress and you have to pull him and put Davis Mills in, is that more damaging long-term for him than if Davis Mills shows that he's the better player and the better option early in the season, allows C.J. Stroud to continue to learn?
Okay, we got to stop with this narrative. We really do. Now, first off, quarterback competition's done. I know that questions keep getting asked about it and that D'Amico Ryans was a little bit coy when asked whether or not Stroud's going to be the starter in Saturday's preseason game against the Dolphins. He probably is. I'd be stunned if that wasn't the case. He's still working with the ones at training camp. This competition's done. And I really want to dispel this narrative that a quarterback should sit behind the scenes for its rookie season. Because the examples that always get brought up, it just makes me scratch my head. Did we really think that if Aaron Rodgers had stepped in immediately for Brett Favre on that Packers team, that Rodgers wouldn't have been similarly successful? Seriously. We're talking about Hall of Fame caliber ability. And maybe you didn't know 100% with him coming out of Cal, and obviously he fell in the first round, and Alex Smith was the first quarterback taken. But do we really believe that Rodgers would not have shown some of the same skills, natural gifted skills that he has if he hadn't been thrown right in there? And then go back to when Alex Smith is again involved with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Smith was the starter for all of Patrick Mahomes' rookie season. Mahomes, there are stories about how awesome he was with the scout team offense. Mahomes wouldn't have gone in there and been better than Alex Smith from the get-go. Like, the reason those two did not start right away had more to do with the success of the team that they were playing on the year before than it did making those guys as ready as possible for their first chance in the league. We're talking about a Hall of Famer in Brett Favre and a guy in Alex Smith who at that moment in time was considered a good, not great, quarterback.
Yeah, the Chiefs were making the playoffs and losing in the divisional round actually they're losing the wild card round every year, unless they play the Texans. That really is it. Is that the guys that get the opportunity to sit, the luxury to sit, it's because
they're in good spots.
Yeah, they're in good spots.
Really good spots
with a good quarterback ahead of them. That's why Bryce Young isn't going to sit a year. The Colts just announced this morning that Anthony Richardson isn't going to sit a year. It's like, gee, I wonder why.
Just put the guy in and figure it out. He's going to have to learn to figure it out. There's going to be moments in his career where he probably doesn't have the best supporting cast around him. It's a faulty narrative that's constantly brought up. You need to make that guy learn behind the scenes. If the guy has it, he has it.
Trey Lance, he got to sit for a year, maybe even two.
In Kyle Shanahan's offense, which is apparently really simple to run. Ask Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and then he got hurt, and then Brock Purdy takes his job. And
immediately!
And now Trey Lance just is like the second string quarterback on the... It's like he got to sit and learn the system.
Yes.
Apparently he hasn't impressed them that much.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. And I've seen a couple of people doing this. Like, oh, you can't put him in right away. He's got one of the most expensive offensive lines in the NFL. And I get that Titus Howard is hurt right now, but it's a bizarre just narrative that keeps getting pushed. And it's by people that aren't even near the situation.